In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the current conditions going into that tropical activity, which now the Hurricane Center is picking up on, and we're going to be really breaking down some upcoming pretty bad severe weather as well. Let's just get straight into those current conditions though, and as you can see, we have quite a bit of storminess actually ongoing at this point. The eastern United States is looking a lot quieter. We did have some activity, obviously, a couple of days ago with some severe weather. That has basically subsided to the point where now it is basically very dry and very sunny here in the eastern half of the nation. Now, as you take a look out west, obviously we have quite a bit going on up there in the northwest, the Rockies as well, and then you can tell there's a line of thunderstorms going on there for the central United States. Let's go ahead and zoom into some different regions. First off, we're going to start in the northwest like we always do. We can just see there's quite a bit of activity taking place here. First off for the Cascades, but not only there, also for more interior Oregon and even into Idaho. We're seeing some heavier showers of rainfall and snowfall ongoing for these areas. As we work our way further south, we can see there's some showers heading across the region just like this. And this is leading towards some snowfall in the highest elevations. I'm looking at you guys there in Colorado and also some of those mountainous regions of Utah as well. We are seeing that turnover to snowfall. For the mountaintops, obviously, for lower elevation regions, this is going to be in the form of rainfall, particularly actually some pretty moderate to heavy rainfall at times, so watch out for that as well throughout the day today. So overall, for the entire northwestern United States, some showery activity both in the form of rainfall and snowfall is ongoing. As we work our way to the central United States, things are a little bit more interesting. We have a low probably about there with cold front really shooting down to these areas, so cold air likely behind all of this. And likely also warm air surging northward ahead of this. This is what is leading towards the severe weather in between. We have the warm temperatures in here with that cold front moving through that, which is obviously cold air mixing with warm air. Also different directions of winds hitting each other. This just leads towards these severe weather events and thunderstorms and instability in general. So as we zoom in, we're going to see that the northern region of this is mostly showery activity up here. But basically everywhere associated with the cold front here, like these areas, is thunderstorms and severe weather. So we see this area right there is what is featuring the severe thunderstorms. This is why we're always watching for cold fronts, because these are the areas where severe weather likes to set up, is these cold fronts, and then out ahead of cold fronts as well is where that can happen. So we're watching these areas here. Also in here, we'll be watching for some of this to really pick up, because this can intensify, especially out here where there's likely very warm and humid temperatures just out ahead of the cold front there. As we work our way further south, we can see that there is some thunderstorms, some isolated thunderstorms about to move onshore to the deep south, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida Panhandle, these areas. That's where these are going to be heading. We also have some of those types of, tropical thunderstorms here for southern Florida and around southern Florida that might start to move onshore, especially areas further, in this circle, basically further south of, Tampa and Orlando for sure. Mostly Miami and then the Everglades and surrounding regions there in the southern fourth of the state of Florida. Key West probably seeing quite a bit of these actually. Right nearby, yeah, probably seeing those actually hit at this point. Also Bahamas there, if you happen to be watching from the Bahamas, definitely a possibility that you're seeing some of those thunderstorms at this point. Now, as we work our way further north, we can see there is some isolated sprinkles for some of these regions. Very, very light showers, very sporadic, and really I think as the sun comes up today, we should see a lot of this dissipate throughout the day today. Well, that's it for the current conditions. That's everything happening around the nation today. What we're going to do is we're going to move on and start talking about some modeled guidance, the National Hurricane Center, and even the Storm Prediction Center as well. Now, as we work our way into the future radar, we can see storminess is really going to pick up here for this northwestern corner of the nation. This is as we're looking towards tonight into tomorrow, which will be Memorial Day. We are going to have some storminess and some snowfall happening for all of these regions. But there's some good news, not for you guys, unfortunately, but for everywhere else, I mean, it is really nice, I would say, for the whole eastern region of the United States, as well as the southwestern and the south central United States. So I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of the United States is going to have nicer weather for Memorial Day, which I think is an above average amount of folks on a certain day to see nicer weather. So that's pretty nice. We're going to see this low start to really intensify actually on Memorial Day, this one right here. We see this kinking in these red lines there, that is an indication that this is actually an intensifying system here. Cold front underneath here. Pretty intense look. And we really see this get going by this point. You can see that cold front right there forming. So we see that area there. We also see the warm front up here. And that is going to cause warm air to really be surging up here. And this is why I think we expect really bad severe weather. We will talk about the Storm Prediction Center, which will show us more. But when we see this strong of a low, that defined of a cold front and a warm front shoving its way that far northward, that really sets up an interesting situation, to say the least. So that's why we're looking towards quite a bit of severe weather to potentially take place. And even when the low is very far north here, you can see it's still really featuring a cold front there that is bringing impacts very far southward. We're seeing cold temperatures try to spread in like this. Still going to be warm by June 1st here in the eastern half of the nation. And that cold front never really makes its way through. So it never manages to really bring cold temperatures to the eastern United States, especially not the southeast. And I mean, for this time of year, that is kind of a typical scenario, I would say. We do see some storminess kind of spread in here by June 3rd to the mid-Atlantic, southeast regions like that. So June 3rd, 4th time frame. And we're going to start to see some more storminess as June 4th. So as we approach June, we will see a stormier month in general. Here's that tropical activity down there. We will take a deep dive into that in a little bit. This is going to be a very long video, folks. I will warn you. We do see some of that sporadic summertime storminess really spread in. Here's another cold front. 6th, 7th time frame of June there. We see really it's spreading down like this. Quite a bit of storminess along that cold front there, and that does reach this region here by the time we're taking a look at about June 7th into June 8th. So we actually see a jet stream that looks a bit like this by this point. So a lot of cold air making its way into these regions. Unfortunately, by the time we're reaching about June 8th, but a lot of warm temperatures heading into the west by this point. That is going to be the look. So that is the upcoming pattern. Here's the total rainfall through the next 10 days. And if you're anywhere in the whites, you're expecting no precipitation over the next 10 days. If you're anywhere in the grays, you're expecting about 1/10 of an inch or less of precipitation over the next 10 days. The greens are going to be 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Blues will be 1/2 an inch to an inch. Yellows will be 1 inch to 2 inches. Reds will be 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns will be 5 to 10 inches of precipitation, which is quite a bit. We see that down there in southern Florida because this model actually has that tropical activity heading into Florida. Spoiler alert, we will take a look at that in a little while. But this model does have that tropical activity bringing tons of rainfall for you guys, which we will take a look at very, very shortly. Here's the snowfall over the next 10 days. And I mean, really, as we're approaching the beginning of June, this is actually a lot of snowfall still expected, in my opinion, for this time of year. Probably the most that I've seen for this time of year since I started doing YouTube in 2018. So this is probably the top snowiest June that's expected since at least 2018, I would say. We do have a dusting, if anything, expected in the grays. It's going to be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall there in the blues. Purples will be 6 to 10. Pinks will be 10 to 20. And then your pastels will be 20 inches plus. And that is the expectations at this point from the European model over the next 10 days. All right, now what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the upcoming temperature pattern. So as we approach the high temperatures today, this is going to be the look. We have a trough in the west and then actually an awfully big ridge here in the east because this does take over most of the central United States and also almost all of the eastern United States as well. So about 2/3 of the United States is featuring these warmer temperatures, which is a pretty large region to be seeing that type of an anomaly. And this continues on. We see this trough start to spread, though. By this point on Monday, May 30th, we do see some warmer temperatures spreading in here to the eastern United States, obviously. Colder temperatures out west, just like this. And by this point, I will say the low is about here, that very strong low. We're going to see that cold front start to develop. Warm front is up here. That is what we're taking a look at. This is the high temperatures on Memorial Day. It's going to be very, very hot for all of these yellows and red regions. Tuesday, we see this cold front spread northward. We see this low is probably about here or so. I don't know where it is actually. It's hard to tell on this frame. We see a warm front here, and that is the look. And by Wednesday, I would say this is by the time the low is moved up into here. This cold front starts to go a little bit flat because there's a lot of warm air in the east. But this is the frontal boundaries by this point. Some warm air surging into there. Also some warm air trying to spread into the western United States. and this trough is heading further eastward here. It's all bottled up here in the central United States by this point, so that is the look. Thursday, June 3rd, we see the southeast holding on for dear life onto some of that warmth. Look at that. Cold front is probably really flat like this, and this is going to cause some pretty sporadic storminess, I would say, for these regions. That's probably when we saw that little bit of a low develop and storminess in there. This is likely a stationary front, and we see this happen oftentimes this time of year when the warm air starts to become more dominant than the cold air. Obviously, as we approach the summertime, that is the trend. So what ends up happening is there's so much force this warm air is putting up. It's putting up a great fight. The cold air is also putting up a pretty decent fight too, because we're still, in the very late springtime. So the front gets stuck in here. The front just cannot go north or south, and it gets stuck. It being flat like this is kind of a sign that we're under, those types of conditions, and that is what is happening here. And what this leads to oftentimes is, first off, I don't know why my pen just got so small. I don't know what happened there. Let me fix that there. This area here, we'll be watching for persistent storminess, especially the closer to the front you go. And flooding will be a concern depending on how long the stationary front gets locked in there, because the storminess is going to be as if there's a cold front over the region, except the storms will be moving horizontally along the front because they can't move south and they can't move north because they're stuck. And this causes what we call training, which is where storm after storm after storm after storm hits your region, and they're basically a line of storms is just moving over you, but not the way you'd expect, like a line passing over. It's like the line is moving in a single file line towards you in its storminess. So it leads us towards inches and inches of rainfall if people get stuck under that training of storms long enough. And that is kind of a side effect of those stationary fronts. So we're going to be watching closely for that. We can see it progresses a little bit further south, especially the further west you go here on Friday, June 3rd. But it still hasn't moved too much. Sometimes we see these move like this, but it hasn't moved too much. And it kind of, I would say, wins out eventually, the cold front. We have colder temperatures trending in the region. But already by Sunday, June 5th, we see warm temperatures kind of trying to return up into this region. And it's pretty sporadic in here as well. So let's see if we can get a definitive pattern at any point. Really, we can't. We have a trough here, and we have a trough here. So this isn't a definitive pattern. This is a pattern that's trying to establish itself into something. So there's some big old question marks, but there is some cooler air on the way for the eastern United States, I would say. And really not too much above normal temperatures for many folks at all. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But right now, this isn't latching onto a pattern that I would distinguish as either a trough or a ridge anywhere. This is all over the place. So let's just move on and talk about some of that tropical activity. First things first, let's talk about the cyclonic vorticity, which shows us some large scale rotation in the atmosphere. We're going to watch for this tropical activity to head in just like this, sort of. So let's watch it. Kind of lingers around the Yucatan Peninsula, and then it takes aim at southern Florida. We see a lot of this activity move up into here, and that is what's going to cause a lot of that rainfall there. So we see a couple of tropical disturbances possibly heading towards Florida, and that's going to be something worth noting. Now, the GFS model has a pretty different solution. It moves pretty close to Florida, but it stays further south here. So we can tell that's significantly further south than the European model, with that cyclonic relative vorticity, which is very large-scale rotation in the atmosphere. So things like tropical cyclones will be picked up like this as reds and purples and pinks. It's especially evident by this frame, so just right there you can tell. Much more rotation right there in a very large scale than like right here. This isn't a tropical cyclone, but this likely is. So that's the difference there. Now, here's the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook in the Atlantic, and as you can see, we have a 30% chance of tropical cyclone development there in the next 5 days, but that's going to be a 0% chance over the next 2 days. So that's going to be after the next 2 days are up. So after Monday and Tuesday are up, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is kind of when we're expecting a bit of a chance of development over this region, and likely this chance is going to go up if the models keep showing what they're showing currently. Now, here is the satellite imagery of this current hurricane over the Pacific that's going to move likely over Mexico into the Atlantic, more specifically the Gulf of Mexico. Not as a hurricane anymore. It will really break up from that, but potentially going to be quite an interesting storm, maybe develop back into a tropical storm or so. And then we're going to be watching for potential impacts and tracking this storm. It's been an interesting one to track. We've been tracking this one for multiple days, and I just love that when we catch on to things very, very early before really anybody's talking about it too much. Now here is the day one categorical outlook here from the Storm Prediction Center. We have a pretty big severe weather day expected potentially today. We have 2 general thunderstorm risks, one there for the southeast and one there for the north central United States. That's where we expect general thunderstorms. But heed every watch, warning, and advisory because anything is possible. Now, there in the darker green area, that's also over the northwest or over the north central United States, better yet. That's where we have a marginal risk of severe weather and is expected basically to be isolated severe weather, better yet. Now, the yellow region is our slight risk of severe weather, where we expect scattered severe weather to take place. And then the orange area there for Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota is where we expect widespread severe weather to begin to be possible. That's called our enhanced risk of severe weather. Pretty elevated there for sure. Now, as we break down these individual outlooks, keep in mind this is all based on 25 miles of a given location, but we have a 5% chance of damaging wind there for the green region. We have a 15% chance there in the yellow region, and then a 30% chance there within the red region. And we see a black hatched area there, mostly over just the red region. And that is where we expect particularly strong winds to be possible. So we're going to be watching for very, very damaging wind, potentially in that black hatched area. And it's even possible outside of there, but it's particularly an area we're watching there within the hatched area. For hail, it's almost the same thing. We have a 5% chance there in the green, 15% chance there in the yellow, and then a 30% chance there within the red. The red region is a little bit smaller, but we also have that hatched area again for hail, which indicates 2-inch diameter or larger hail is going to be possible in there. So we're really watching for some really large hail, some really damaging wind, and then also some tornadoes potentially, where we have a 2% chance there within the green of tornadoes, and then a 5% chance there within the brown. So all 3 types of severe weather is going to be possible throughout the day today. For these regions. Today is Sunday, May 29th, by the way. For day 2, we have almost identical look here for Monday, May 30th. We have 3 general thunderstorm risks, one there for the deep south, one there for the southeast, and then one there for the north central United States. The lighter green areas, again, is our general thunderstorm risk areas, and that's where you should heed every watch, warning, and advisory, but really no severe weather is necessarily expected. For the darker green region, we have our marginal risk of severe weather, and that is where we expect isolated severe weather to be possible within all of those darker green regions. The yellow area there is our slight risk area. That's where we expect scattered severe weather to be possible. And then we have another enhanced risk here on day 2 for Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, and North Dakota. Again, where widespread severe weather begins to be possible. For the individual outlooks for day 2, we have a damaging wind outlook here with 5% chance there in the green, 15% chance there in the yellow again, and then a 30% chance there within the red. Another hatched area there for wind on day 2 for North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. So we have a lot of damaging wind expected for 2 days in a row. Hail, again, we have a 5%, a 15% in the yellow, and then a 30% in the red again. So another big, large hail day again. And then also the significant hatched area again. In that black hatched area where 2-inch diameter hail or larger seems to be a pretty big possibility, which is just back-to-back big wind and big hail days. Now, day 2 looks a little bit worse potentially for tornadoes, and that's not to say that today can't have tornadoes, but it's looking a little bit more conductive of tornadoes tomorrow, where we have a 2% in the green, a 5% in the brown, and even a 10% there within the yellow for tomorrow, with that hatched area indicating EF2 or more intense tornadoes are going to be possible. So particularly major tornadoes are going to be possible throughout the day tomorrow. And again, that's not to say they're not going to happen today or even outside of this hatched area, but it's just to say that it looks even more likely in that area that those are going to be possible. Now for day 3, this one's just all over the place. We have 4 general thunderstorm risks in the lighter greens. Again, where no severe weather is expected. Thunderstorms are expected to be possible, but again, pay attention because anything is possible. We have 2 marginal risk areas, one there for Florida and then one there along that cold front from Texas all the way up through the Great Lakes. And that's where isolated severe weather seems to be possible. The yellow areas are slight risk where scattered severe weather seems to be possible. And we have a 3rd day in a row of enhanced risk where we have Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri in there now, where widespread severe weather seems to be a pretty big likelihood. So for Tuesday, May 31st, Again, this seems to be a pretty bad severe weather day for the third day in a row. Now, for day 4, we see here on Wednesday, June 1st, we have 2 areas of 15% chance of severe weather there popping up. One there for Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, and then one there for the Northeast. And both of these areas are expected to be slight risks once they move into day 3. So 15% translates to slight risks. So that is the expectation at this point. Anyway, this has been an insanely long video, guys. But for today's confidence tab, we're at a 4 out of 6. Just, we got to move a little bit closer to this tropical cyclone. I will move up to a 5 out of 6, I think, once that tropical cyclone becomes a lot more certain of track and intensity. But for now, there is pretty much anything is possible at this point with that one. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovin Eagle, Larry the Pan, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, and David Scott as well. Sorry, Dave Scott and Tana Carnes as well. I don't know how I got choked up on that one. For today's diamond patron highlight of the day as well, I would like to thank you guys for also supporting the channel. Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Nimor Holly, Michael Kodalasa, Catbite, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Calisi also. I'd also like to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.